It's time to make sports talk great again with Curt Schilling and Steve Deace.
Happy Friday. Welcome to We Talk Sports here on The Blaze, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. I am Steve Deace. He is World Series champion, future Hall of Famer Curt Schilling. Each day we put 25 minutes on the clock, get to as many of the day's sports topics as we possibly can. Curt Schilling, are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right, we put 25 minutes on the clock beginning right now. So yesterday we did the National League. Today we look at the Junior Circuit, the American League, as we head into pitchers and catchers reporting across the majors next week. Let's begin in the American League East. And I think the major offseason storyline here is pretty obvious, even for me. And that is, did the Yankees do what they had to do to be more competitive in a 5 or 7 game series against the Boston Red Sox? I think that's really the storyline of this division, but what do you think?
Well, I think both of us had the same thing in different words. My major offseason storyline was the Yankees roster. And you could throw the Red Sox in here too. When was the last time you had a market with a $100 million player on it? Or more than one, that you didn't have a Yankee or Red Sox win. Mm-hmm. When, last year they signed a guy who almost won the MVP in spring training for over $100 million. But the lack of turnover on their roster, I think the Yankees, what they get, Tulowitzki was the big, and he's going to play until Gregorius is back. Both teams have followed the age-old plan of develop from within.
And what's funny is their fan base. I mean, you're closer to it than me, but I don't see them clamoring. Why didn't we get Bryce Harper? Nope. Why didn't we go buy Machado? That's kind of a culture change for their fans too, isn't it?
Seismic shift. Here's the thing: those things didn't happen this winter, but the expectations did not change. Mm-hmm. That's the fun part.
This is still the lineup that set the home run record last year.
Yep.
David Robertson's gone, but this is still maybe the best bullpen in all of the majors. Yep. The question for the Yankees is the same question we had about them last year, which is, who's the guy that pitches the first 7 innings of games 1 and 2 of a postseason series? Who is that?
And you can get more specific than that. The Yankees, like the Red Sox used to do, the Yankees are saying, who is the guy I give the ball to? Aaron, this is what Aaron Boone's asking. Mm-hmm. Who do I give the ball to pitch against Chris Sale in the play-in game?
Yeah.
And today it's Severino. And I think at the end of the season it will be. But it's just mind-boggling to me. That those two teams didn't, because they were the ones that make the hot stove go round and round, and they didn't this winter. And I don't think that's good for the rest of baseball though, because I think that they're serving notice.
Well, I think Boston clearly takes a look at. I mean, historically, they had one of the greatest seasons of all time. When you look at the combined wins against replacement of their starting pitchers, when you look at they had the MVP in Mookie Betts, and then you throw in another Red Sox there that should have been more, I think, of an MVP candidate as well. They had a guy come off the bench and hit for the cycle for the first time ever in the history of Major League Baseball's postseason. I mean, this team is deep and this team is loaded. So the fact that they kind of just sat there, like the Cheshire Cat with the crap-eating grin, you're right. I'd be concerned about that. The Yankees, I thought, I would have at least called the Nationals. And before the Nats made the big pitching signing that they made, I would have at least called them and said, hey, if you want to rebuild and we wanted Max Scherzer, what would it take? I'd at least have made that call to get an answer, because these look like the same two teams to me, which means they look like two teams that are going to be right around 100 wins again. And I still don't see how the Yankees get into the 7th inning so that their bullpen can take over from there.
Well, I see how they can do it a couple nights a week. I don't see how they can do it 5 nights a week. That's the big difference. But again, you're looking at a bullpen, I think, that's going to do some things that we've never seen before this year, as long as they get through spring training healthy.
Any other teams here to watch? I mean, like Baltimore, are they going to report for spring training? I mean, what are they doing right now?
I'm gonna segue that last word into the next one, which the health. The Boston Red Sox fans, let me just tell you, the only thing you need to worry about this spring is that 24 guys get through the spring exceptionally healthy, and that Chris Sale is just normal.
Right.
I mean, what he did to close out the World Series, I was wrong last year. I said it. I was wrong that they couldn't win without him. He wasn't a huge factor in the postseason, but they still won it anyway, and they won it easily going away, by the way. But if you had a healthy Chris Sale, who, remember, he barely pitched at the end of the year last year. You had a healthy Chris Sale, and what's that 108 win team looking
I don't think
like?
he went more than 6 innings from mid-August on, did he?
And he didn't pitch a couple times either. I know he had a couple. Remember, he made a 1-inning start.
And then the game he came back off the DL, they had him, like, I think, at a 90 pitch count, and he struck out 10 guys.
Yeah.
And then in 90 pitches, right? But he wasn't. You're right. They clearly limited him.
Watching,
yeah,
that's what I'm watching. That's the team to watch. And you might Sale would be the player to watch, but I got to tell you, probably one of the more, if not the most exciting players to come along in a little while is going to rear his head in that division. That's Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
That's when you start. That's when you start feeling old.
Yeah.
When Junior comes along. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I faced his dad in his first game, and I mean, come on. Yeah. I'm
in Montreal. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. But I think he's the first rookie that I've seen or looked at that I think could win the Rookie of the Year and finish in the top 10 the MVP voting. He's got that kind of potential.
Wow. Who's the most pressure on this spring in this division?
It's same as every spring. The Yankees and the Red Sox. Both teams play to the season is all about winning a World Series.
Then isn't really just the Yankees after the season the Red Sox just had?
Oh,
I mean, if the Red Sox go 94-68 and losing the wild card round, is the city of Boston going to burn? I'm asking. I don't know.
They're going to be pissed because they have a roster. They are. Because, first of all, it'll mean that they have to go almost a calendar year between parades, and they just don't do that anymore.
That's just, first world problems, Joe.
More importantly, it's a
the
roster.
The suffering is real. Yes.
Yep. But it's a 108-win team, right? So if it doesn't win 108 games, Boston fans will be pissed that it underachieved.
Stop and think about the fact that they might go 98-64.
Yeah.
And
win the World Series,
and they would win the World Series, and they went down by 10 games from last year's win total.
I got to tell you, in the last 10 years, the Boston Red Sox have managed to put the Red Sox right alongside the Yankees from an expectations perspective,
I agree.
And it's realistic.
I agree, and hey, you should know you were a big part of that culture change that they did there. Let's go to the American League Central because we are contractually obligated. So, you know what? Can we go back to the East for just a second, Aaron?
Yeah.
Curt, are the Orioles going to report for spring training? Do they have a team? Was anybody in the front office this morning? What the hell's going on there?
I don't know. I will tell you this: what Peter Angelos has done to that franchise should be a crime. You're talking, and I can speak from experience. One of the best fan bases in all sports, one of the most loyal, a very rich history, some amazing stories, from Cal Ripken to Frank Robinson to Brooks Robinson to Eddie Murray, and I mean, Jim Palmer. The list goes on and on and on and on. He ran the franchise into the ground. He's destroyed it.
I don't think a lot of our younger. Let's park here for a second because we won't need much time in the American League Central. It's dreadful. It's really the American League dreadful. But right. I think for our younger viewers to understand the legacy of Baltimore baseball, for example, the idea of you can homer your way to a pennant in the modern era. That's the Earl Weaver's, my favorite plays, the 3-run home run.
Strike out a lot, wait for the 3-run homer.
Yes. The manager losing his mind out on the diamond. That was another thing. It was Billy Martin and Earl Weaver sort of pioneered that back in the day. You mentioned some of the great Hall of Famers. The trend that we went to in the 90s of sort of throwback, modern looking, or throwback looking with modern amenity ballparks. Camden Yards blazed the trail for that.
And still today is one of the best ones
Absolutely.
out there.
It's still one of my favorite places to go play out on the road and MLB The Show. You're right.
47 years was the last time Major League Baseball had 4 20-game winners.
I think people, if you're a younger viewer, you're like, I mean, they've been okay. But if you grew up, I'm in my 40s, Kurt's a little bit older than that. Yeah. If you're Gen X or older, like that would be Kurt and I's generation is Gen X. If you're Gen X or older, you never thought you'd ever live to see the day that the Baltimore Orioles would essentially become the Montreal Expos, yet still active as a franchise. You never thought you'd
embarrassing.
say it.
It's embarrassing what they've done. Peter Angelos did the right thing. He brought in Buck Showalter. Buck turned that team around. They were a player or two away for a couple years. If they had gone out in free agency and done a couple things, they could have been right in the thick of things. Mr. Angelos had the money and refused to do it and destroyed the franchise in the meantime. And it's pathetic and it's embarrassing. Listen, Cal Ripken saved baseball. 1994 strike. We don't come back without Cal Ripken's streak of 2,100 games played in a row, which we'll never see again, by the way. But yeah, it's pathetic and it's sad to what's happened to that baseball town.
So let's go to the American League Dreadful, which to me is the National League West without a second team. So I look at the Indians as the Dodgers. They're not as good as they were a year ago. I still think they'll win the division, but I don't see a second team here. Somebody who's going to finish in second place, but what I mean by that is I don't see a team going 88-74, 89-73 and making this a pennant race the last week of the year, but maybe you disagree. So what are you watching for in this division? And maybe that's what we're watching this spring is,
right. Does
anybody come out of here that's going to make the Indians think about maybe we can't dump any more payroll post-August? What do you think?
Well, the hard part is that, again, we're talking about all of this at a time when we don't have Machado or Harper signed, and there's still Dallas Keuchel's out there. There's still quite a bit of talent.
There he is. We got our Dallas Keuchel reference in, and this time it wasn't me. Go ahead, sir. Yes.
But the storyline was very boring. Can anyone catch the Indians? That's the storyline. I think the Indians or the Twins are the only team. I think they did a couple things, and you'll hear me talk about them further as we go into here. But I got to believe the Indians that they'll. That's the division. No other team is worth going to watch play, in my opinion, because you're not. Their roster is just so much better than everybody else's that it's going to be they'll have another month to get ready for the playoffs.
Team to watch and why? I know when we did our hot stove thing a month ago, you thought the White Sox might be a dark horse for one, if not both, Machado and Harper, and come in late. Do you think that's totally off the table now?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I think the White Sox have done a lot of things to attract Manny from personnel decisions they've made. I'm watching them because, again, they'll make me watch them in spring training if they do something. I think Jerry Reinsdorf and the group around the White Sox has a shot to do something, but the other team
could they afford all three? Given where they're at as a franchise and the size of market they have?
Yes.
Because I think if they, and all three, we're talking about our man, Dallas Keuchel, whose agent needs to send Curt and I a check, by the way. That's our man, Dallas, and then Machado and Harper. Because I think, given where the Indians are at, I think they'd win the division with those three guys or come close.
They could. They've got some young talent. They've got a lot of prospects. But the other team I'm watching is Cleveland because I still believe there's teams. You don't ever stop pursuing a team that has mentioned the fact that they'll trade Corey Kluber. I think that the Theo Epsteins of the world, that's where they make their head.
Why isn't that a call the Yankees make then?
Maybe it is.
Because that's the kind of move that's the difference between them and the Red Sox, in my view.
Yep. And here's the thing. The one thing that what happens every spring, and I hope to God it doesn't happen, but it's probably going. A major player is done. A pitcher blows out, gets Tommy John, or a position player does the whatever, and suddenly I am willing. That is the thing that
always has frustrated me my whole life as a baseball fan. Why the hell don't when the season ends? You know when spring is. Why the hell don't you get surgery in November? Why do we find out when you report that you're not good to go and you need it then? Why didn't you get it 4 damn months ago? Why?
I went through this. My last year, I didn't have surgery in the offseason. Number one, the team wouldn't let me. But more importantly, I didn't realize I was hurt until it was too late. And there's a lot of different reasons. Some guys don't have to have surgery on something. I'll give you an example. You have a slight tear of your meniscus. okay, I can get by. It's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You do a drill or a plyometric a rep and you tear it completely
Sure.
2 weeks before camp. Now you
Yeah.
have, it was bothering me last year, but things like that. But and a lot of times
I'm talking about when you have a arthroscopic and a cleanup and
Yeah.
hey, he's going to be out till May 1. Then why didn't you do this in November?
Yeah. No, there's a lot of, because it's a very complicated thing and it's a discussion we'll have someday. The 30 big league doctors, when I played, they covered each other's ass. Have you ever in your life read a player being misdiagnosed?
That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that they've never made a mistake?
Right.
Or
Of
are you
course they
telling
have.
me that we've
Right.
never heard it?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I know of stories of things that happened that, again, I'll have in my book someday that are very dark. And it's an old school, old brothers group.
Let me tell you who the most pressure's on in this division. Got to pour one out for the Detroit Tigers ticket office. And 5,000 G. Thoughts and prayers when your general manager Al Avila comes out and says, not that I'm bitter, except I am, comes out and literally says, we're probably not going to be competitive or even think of spending money until 2021. That is 2 full seasons from now. So why would you buy a ticket? Why would you do it?
You want to know how God works in mysterious ways, man. You want to know how symbiotic we are? The most pressure this spring in the AL Central is on the Detroit Tigers season ticket sellers.
You actually did have that? Really?
The Detroit Tigers season ticket sellers.
I had no idea that you had that. That's why I wanted to get my shot in on my team, because I thought there's no way you would bring it up. You'd have something much smarter than that. But I mean, listen, we're not in terms of venerable franchises. This is one of the greatest of all time, and we're not in as bad a shape as the Orioles. Oh, come on. We're up. This is one of the great baseball franchises of all time.
No.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
It's an old one. It's an old one.
Oh, no, it's you know what?
I'm going to pull a Jim Carrey. La, 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 la,
la.
Hey, we're not quick. The guy to watch in the AL Central, Byron Buxton. 5-tool, superstar, Hall of Fame potential, has fizzled out. If he turns into the player I think that he can be, Minnesota is going to be in a little different position.
Let me give you another one, Michael Fulmer, because this was the guy that 2 years ago was 3 years ago was the Rookie of the Year. Yep. There was talk the next year they should trade him for a bevy of prospects. They didn't do it. Right. Last year he was hurt, banged up, and horrible. If he has a bounce back year with his age and contract, that is a guy that could command a hefty payload at the trade deadline if he were to bounce back.
That's if you're a Tiger fan, his health is one of the most important things you can wish for this year.
So you just go to the ballpark to see if Fulmer is doing the long toss. That's why you're there. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the American League West and some of the major offseason storylines you're looking at here in this division, where the Astros reigned supreme, but they had the A's nipping at their heels all the way to the very end.
I have a lot of. I don't have any huge storylines. I have one potential huge storyline. Mike Trout is 2 years away from free agency. He's due to make $33 million in 19 and $33 million in 20. Brad Osmus is managing the Angels.
Yeesh. I can tell you. Let me tell you some stories about that, by the way. But go ahead.
And I know Brad. I played against him. Got to know him very well afterwards as a manager and all the other things that go with that. If you're a guy that likes to bet dark horses, long shots, I mean, if Albert Pujols rejuvenates himself and has a year, Mike Trout is he's going to be the best player we've ever seen in our lifetimes. Mookie Betts is closing the gap, but I would watch that. I would watch them this spring, and I have them as my team to watch this spring. I love the Astros. They're going to be good. Verlander and Cole are fronting that rotation. Mm-hmm. They've got the swing and miss pitchers. Carlos Correa, 239, 15, and 65 last year. He's not going to do it again. He's 24 years old. He's more of a 335, 125 guy, I believe, when all is said and done. By the way, did you know last year. So I don't know. Do you play fantasy baseball or have you played fantasy
I have played
baseball?
in the past. Yeah.
Okay. Last year, and fantasy baseball, you can see statistical trends before the real world sees them a lot of times. Last year in fantasy, so let me ask you a theory. Where did you get your power from when you drafted? Right, you got your power from the infield corners, right, and from your
corner outfielders, right.
Last year was the first year, I believe, in the last 50 years that Major League shortstops outproduced Major League first basemen.
Even going back to A-Rod, Nomar.
Yep.
Cal Ripken, all those guys were playing at the same time.
You had McGuire, Bagwell. You had a slew of Hall of Fame. Frank Thomas.
True, they were playing back in those days too.
First time in like some insane number of years, and that was a year when, like I said, Carlos Correa hit 239, 15, and 65. He's not going to do it again. They still won
100 games with him hitting 239.
Right.
By the way,
yes.
Don't you think what separates them from the Red Sox is they need to go back to those throwback jerseys from the 80s, don't you think?
Yeah.
Don't you think that might close the gap right then and there?
Some of the greatest uniforms ever.
Absolutely, they are. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. But while the Angels are my team to watch, players to watch, I want to watch Correa this spring. I want to watch Ohtani.
Ohtani's going to play with the Tommy John, right? But he's only going to DH.
One way.
Yeah.
He's going to play one way.
And you told us in the winter that you didn't think it would impact his hitting at all whatsoever.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I think it's going to impact his psyche. This is I don't.
Is there enough time in the day to hone your skills as a hitter and rehab Tommy John surgery at the same time? I don't know. I'm asking.
Initially, there is, yes, because it's a very long, arduous, slow process, and you could almost argue that it might help him in the sense that he's
playing and still engaged. And
I don't know, from a surgical medical standpoint, if that's going to impinge or affect in a negative way. I don't imagine it will, because I wouldn't imagine they would let him play if it was. But I'm going to give a shout out, okay, to a player I want you to watch this spring, prospect in Texas, Willie Calhoun. He's a left-handed hitter. He's a fourth pick overall by the Dodgers. He's a huge power prospect, 5-tool guy, and he's also a graduate of Yavapai Junior College, my alma mater.
There we go. There it is. Now the truth comes out. There it is. Nothing on the A's?
They're boring. They're boring. I mean, listen, Billy Beane will have them doing what he has to have them do for them to hang around. But I'm not sure. Well, I mean, again, you're going to face me in a one-game playoff. The reason I pay attention to the A's is because of Bob Melvin. I think he's a fantastic manager, and I think he can do things that other people can't with less talent. But it's a hard division, right? Because listen, I'm telling you right now, if your future's better, go take a look at the Angels.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be against putting a little on them, because they don't have to have a lot of things go right. They just have to have a lot of things stay healthy. And a new manager can do things like that, right? I mean, that's the
unless he's Brad Ausmus, but yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's going to be some visceral hatred from your end. I get it. I totally understand.
I'm sure he's got a wonderful singing voice. I'm sure at that. You're high on the Angels. What's the rotation? Who's pitching?
I don't know. Maybe somebody I haven't heard of, and a guy who makes the team out of camp.
So it's the pray for rain without the spawn insane. Is that what you're telling us?
If you go and look at it, it's unbelievable. You're talking about over 100 legitimate free agents are still in the market. You could go out if you want to spend money. You could literally put a 5-man rotation together of free agents today and have Dallas Keuchel front in the rotation.
I was just going to say, where's our boy Dallas?
Yes. No, but I'm saying.
So why don't the Angels do this then?
I don't know. I think Artie Moreno. I think he's still stinging from the Pujols contract.
I mean, I got to believe a lot of those veteran pitchers would take 1 or 2 year deals right about now, wouldn't they? With spring training next week.
I mean, that's what has.
So you go to those guys and say, hey, we'll pay you top dollar. We got the natural out there for 2 more years. So you guys get 2-year deals, and let's see if we can catch lightning in a bottle, and let's see what happens. Yeah, why wouldn't you do that then?
somebody's going to break away from the pack, and by that I don't know. I told you about the '94 strike when the owners were complaining that we weren't allowing. The owners wanted us to tell them how much they could spend on us, right? And then Jerry Reinsdorf broke ranks and signed Albert Bell,
right?
And the owners, we looked across the table and just started laughing in their face, like, really, you guys are broke?
The same Jerry Reinsdorf that traded no-hitting pitcher Wilson Alvarez and a bunch of other guys at the trade deadline a couple of years after this, when his team was 3 games out of first place.
Yeah,
same guy.
Yeah, same guy.
Yeah.
But I there's so many guys out there right now. This is again. Baseball relies on the hot stove. There was no hot stove this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's a good thing for the game. I think the next collective bargaining agreement, but I'm going to tell you right now, the biggest thing to watch is going to be the rules. The players are receptive to some of this stuff, which blows me away. I'm worried about what Tony Clark might be doing to the Players Association that Donald Fear turned into the juggernaut. So, but spring training's here.
It is. Pitchers and Catchers report next week. And after today and yesterday, you are fully updated. And make sure you get out there, bet the over on the Angels, even though we could not name one starting pitcher. Curt, have a great weekend, man.
Take care, buddy.
All right, we'll see you Monday.